Jesus, we remember your kindness, even when we forget. You remind us how you left the 99 to find us.
Everybody, welcome to Come and Keep the Conversation Going. It seems like a while since we've done one of these, but James Hancock, it's really great to have you with us.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
You are part of New Life Church, Crouch Valley, so thank you for coming at the end of a busy day. On these kind of things, my mother-in-law always likes to find out some information about the person being interviewed. So in order to satisfy her desires, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. First of all, hello, June.
Yeah.
Is that the first shout out she's had?
June, they now know your name.
That's not very good for safeguarding, is it?
Well, we haven't said a surname.
That's true.
As you say.
So what was the question again?
The question was, tell us a little bit about yourself.
About myself. So yes, I'm James. I've been coming to New Life Church for coming up to about 10 years now. So outside of church, I was for 20 years, worked in primary schools, primary school teacher, and then a deputy head for 10 years. So I took on lots of responsibilities as part of that, helping the head run the school. And for 10 of those years as the deputy, I was one of the safeguarding leads at school. So about 18 months ago, I took a big bold decision to step away from that. And I'm now working for an organisation called Emotionally Healthy Minds, which is working with children, parents and teachers to support children with their emotions. So we do tutoring and emotion coaching with our children. We also are going into schools to work with parents and teachers to train them in how they can support children that are struggling with their emotions, so that they can then access learning and access all the things that they need to in life. Because when I was a deputy in a school, we really saw an increase in the number of children that were struggling with their emotional and mental health. So what Sarah, who comes here to New Life Church, has created, is a real need out there to support these families and support these schools with supporting children with their emotional and mental health. And so part of that role that I've taken over recently is safeguarding lead at Emotionally Healthy Minds. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight, I've got quite a bit of experience from it. I wouldn't necessarily say I've wanted to do safeguarding, but it's been part of the roles that I've done, and I've realised the significance of it and the importance of it. And so, one of my roles at New Life Church is part of the safeguarding team. So again, that's where safeguarding has come into. I was trying to think how long I've been on the safeguarding team, and I've got no idea. I can't even think if it was pre-COVID or post-COVID. So I'm not even sure how many years it's been, but I'm on the team.
And we're really grateful that you are, James. And you guys on the safeguarding team deal with a lot of challenging stuff, and also how to kind of navigate the world of safeguarding, because I know if Sally Watkinson was here, who's part of our safeguarding team, she would hear me say often, safeguarding doesn't seem to keep anybody safe. So, which is not the aim of it, isn't it? But it is accusation and investigation, and the times have shifted, haven't they? Because when I was, I've always thought that you're innocent until proven guilty. And obviously now, just looking at the world in which you live, as soon as an accusation's made, whether you're innocent or you're guilty, you tend to be trialed by media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is difficult. Social media also plays a part, because people start joining in with this kind of, it's like an avalanche, isn't it? And then in the end, often the person that has been accused, if they're not guilty, feels like they are guilty.
Yeah. And I think sometimes safeguarding measures you put in place to protect people can feel like you're being blamed or you're accepting the accusations, but it's not. So it's a difficult path to navigate safeguarding, because you've got to consider victims, perpetrators, people that have been accused. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, and often, just there has been like a cover up of poor behaviour, and churches have not been immune from that. And one of the things that we want to talk about a little bit is just recently with the whole Sean Bolt's situation in America and how that wasn't handled well, and certainly a person that I would see as a really safe pair of hands, a guy called Bill Johnson, he's and Bethel Church, and the way they handled the Sean Bolt stuff is clearly not a great role model to follow. So, and that's really why I've one of the reasons that I've asked James to come on is that how do we navigate the world in which we live? It's not easy. I know for myself. One of the things that we've put in place here is if you're uncomfortable with meeting with someone on your own, we now encourage our team to have someone else there, which brings some challenge because people aren't always honest when you say, "I'm sorry, I've got someone else coming along."
Definitely, yeah. It changes that trust dynamic.
It does, and so. But in order to keep people safe, that's both the people that are trying to help and the person that's seeking help. It does mean that we have to bring things in that make us feel uncomfortable, which is what sometimes that doesn't even make it feel safe. As soon as you feel uncomfortable, you tend not to feel safe.
Yeah.
So I guess, for us in the Christian world, these are not easy things to walk through. But I do believe it is really important for the church and particularly Christian leaders to make sure that if someone feels they've been poorly treated, that they feel they can come and raise concerns without being made to feel like they're terrible or they're raising their hand against the Lord's anointed, which is not a great argument if someone's been poorly treated by a person in leadership. So anyway, James, going on to in the school world, you obviously dealt with safeguarding. So how did you navigate that world?
It was challenging. Every day, probably an element of my job was to deal with a safeguarding incident. And, these could be really low-level things where staff are just passing on a concern that they've noticed about a child, and so they just want that logged, and then you have to decide whether you're going to act upon that or not. Or it could be getting a parent to come in and saying that you're going to have to contact social services because of a concern that's been raised, and you're letting them know. So really tricky, awkward conversations, understandably. And again, it's trying to explain to the parents that we're not assuming and believing what's happened, but our duty is to pass that on. And that is the crux of a safeguarding lead or a safeguarding role is to just decide when it reaches a threshold that it needs to be passed on, or if it doesn't reach that threshold, what other actions are you going to take? And so it's a constant plate spinning task. Lots of different, especially in a school situation, in a school of about 400 students. That's challenging, and I think there's more and more schools are taking on more and more safeguarding roles, like sometimes taking it away from the head and the deputy to actually an assigned role to someone else, because it's taken up so much time for school leaders. And certainly a school of the size that I've worked at would probably maybe even now have 3 or even 4 safeguarding leads just to cope with the load of safeguarding needs.
Yeah, because when I was at school many moons ago, practices that was done by the teachers, now you would end up in prison.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it's been quite a quick change, hasn't it? I know 40 odd years doesn't seem like a short time, but the world has clearly moved on in how it responds to poor behaviour. And then, of course, again, even 20 years ago, we didn't have social media. So it was, now people tend to talk about it on a post or whatever, and it just makes it more and more difficult to sort of do well.
Yeah, yeah, because at the core of safeguarding, you're dealing with very confidential, sensitive matters, and in the safeguarding role, you can abide to that. But as you say, it only takes someone to put one comment on social media, which will be very one-sided, and then you're limited or can't do anything in response because of your responsibilities to everyone in this situation.
Yeah, and I think that certainly works in the church context, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah,
as a leader, you are not able to just put out your personal views and maybe even how you've been treated. You just have to trust the safeguarding guys to make a good judgment.
yeah,
Whereas a person that sometimes makes allegations, there's no restriction on them of what they do and who they speak to.
yeah, yeah.
And you know that I know that's been the case with some of the things that as a church we've had to look at, isn't it? It's not easy, and as a safeguarding officer, you're also got feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
Of what goes on.
And I think for me personally, it always feels in safeguarding that whatever decision you make is never going to be. You're never going to make everyone happy, which is a lesson in life. But you know, whatever decision you come up with, it's going to put someone else's nose out of joint, or they're going to criticise it. So you just have to sort of develop that thick skin and stand by your principles on those sorts of matters.
I mean, I guess for myself is if you've behaved poorly and that has been kind of like a deliberate behaviour on your part, that's you know, in some ways if something happens that causes an investigation, you take it on the chin more, because actually you know that you've done something that's affected someone in a poor way and it's been done in a deliberate manner. But when you're trying to help people and then someone makes a comment or accusation against you, that's harder to navigate, in my opinion. And also for you as an investigating person, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees with the principle behind safeguarding of keeping everyone safe, making sure people feel happy to attend church, making sure that or school, wherever you're talking about in safeguarding situation, that people are feeling safe. Everyone would want that. But when the rubber hits the road and things happen, then sometimes people do resist and push back against that because they feel that their rights are being restricted or their freedom is affected. And you know, I think sometimes in when you're involved in safeguarding, you feel a bit like the party pooper. So someone, you know, has a great idea and really fantastic, and as a person you support that. But when you sort of have that question, have you thought about the risk assessment, the safeguarding implications of that? You kind of look like you're bringing a downer on it. But it is just making sure that is part of people's thinking in the first place, because you know, yes, it can be a great idea, but if it's going to cause damage to people along the way because it's not been thought through clearly enough, that needs to be considered.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, I believe every negative thing that happens to you in a role that you're fulfilling, whilst it's painful, it is also an opportunity to look at, okay, so this has been our general practice. now it's been questioned because someone's saying that they've been pained by an action that you took or words that you said, whilst it's extremely painful, it is an opportunity to look at it and say, okay, so how do we make sure that that person who you're looking to help can be helped, but at the same time, you're also looking at the person that's trying to help to make sure that they're safe to say the things that maybe are not easy to say.
Yeah.
Without feeling that without the misconstruing of what was said.
Yeah. And I think quite often we focus our attention when we talk about safeguarding on the people that are affected by incidents. But you're right. We've got it. Safeguarding is all more rounded than that, and it's thinking about everyone that's involved. Yeah. So when we're talking about church situations, it's those people that are in pastoral positions and in positions where they themselves are vulnerable when they're praying for or talking to vulnerable people. So both sides have a vulnerability that we need to safeguard and protect.
Yeah. So for me, in my role now in New Life Church, Crouch Valley, I don't have to meet with anybody from a pastoral perspective. So it's very easy for me to now say, okay, I'm not. You need to speak to the people that are. But as a person who leads an environment, a church, you also want to make sure that everybody is safe, and that includes the person who feels poorly treated or is a victim of poor behaviour. So, and that's not easy, I don't think, to navigate. And I remember, last year when our young people went off to Limitless, and I remember Sally saying, well, the church, we're taking them in a car, but you need 2 people in each car to be DBS checked. And I remember thinking, this isn't going to work. But Sally was, insistent, and I went with that. And then when I went to the people in the church and said, well, we need 2 people that are safeguarded in the car, they was like, what? This is bonkers.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, I totally agree. However,
and that's the nature of it. You're constantly battling people, sort of questioning things and raising eyebrows, rolling eyes. But it's sort of, the sentiment behind it, the ambition behind that is to keep everyone safe, and it's protecting the adults and the young people. Yeah. But it can feel like things are being done to you. I grant that.
And you're as a sort of leader, you're just thinking all we want to do is get our kids to Limitless. And it was just one of those incidents that cropped up in the day-to-day of church. So it is a safeguard, and you don't want children getting into cars where they feel unsafe. But it was one of those, I remember just sitting there thinking, never again will I get caught up in this. And, then you ask other churches what they do, and each church does it differently. So because it's just taking people to a camp. And
I think there are some things that are really easy to call and can be consistent across churches, and then there'll be other things that will come down to personal judgment, personal experiences, things that maybe have happened in the past that then influence decisions. So it is a minefield.
It is a minefield, because years ago, when I was part of a youth group, I mean, our cars didn't have seat belts.
Yeah.
In the back seat.
I've been transported in the boots of cars before when I was a kid.
Sometimes we would have like 7 or 8 people in a Ford Escort.
Yeah.
No seat belts, and you'd have a little thing on the front if people wanted to give a little bit of petrol money, and I mean, there was no such thing as safeguarding. You just drove off and you picked people up, but times have changed, and I think for some of the more older generation, it's hard for them to understand, isn't it? That, times have moved on.
But I think a lot of what safeguarding is now is having learnt from things that have gone wrong in the past. Yeah. So it was much freer that you could just chuck as many people in a car as possible and just drive somewhere. But then accidents have led to preventable accidents have happened that have then led to let's change this. So it's safeguarding is constantly looking back to the past and learning from it to then try and prevent things from happening again.
And the other side of safeguarding, isn't it, is that it's not just you've got someone in the church who's extremely dangerous for people to connect with. It's a much broader of car travel.
Yeah.
Kids booking in and out for kids' church on Sunday.
Yeah, fire exits, fire extinguishers. It's just keeps on being added to.
It does, yeah.
And therefore, and when we have like we do here, like Yum Yums that's open to the public, that then has other elements of safeguarding that needs to be required. So, it feels like a never-ending list of things to think about and consider.
It is, and I think for people that are working in a church environment on a regular basis, paid employment or volunteering, sometimes these things appear overwhelming. How do we just carry out our normal functions without feeling like you could be accused or put in a position of vulnerability?
Yeah, and I think that's where safeguarding needs to be something that's woven into everything. Sort of, when the first decision's made, safeguarding is considered. As it's rolled out, safeguarding is considered. As it's delivered, safeguarding is delivered. As it's reviewed afterwards, safeguarding is considered. Because I think when safeguarding just becomes a bolt-on to what you're doing, like an add-on at the very end, it falls off. So it needs to be entwined into what you're doing, and I think we're getting better at that. I think schools are getting better at that because it's been embedded so much longer in schools, and a lot of input's been put into schools. Churches and things as well, I think that's getting better as well, but there's always more work to do. And just as you get it sorted, the goalposts move, and you've got to continue again.
And so it's the goal of what we're trying to talk about here is how do we create an environment in our churches where people feel safe. If there is someone who's causing damage, we'll talk about that in the next part, is when do you call out and make public, and when do you not? I remember many years ago we was approached by the police to whether we'd receive someone into our church environment that was on the register, and it came completely out of the blue. And then when I sat with the guy who was on the register and with the public protection unit team, it became very real. That and then they threw in the punchline, and you can't tell anybody that they're here. So I remember going at that time, this is going back 20 years or so, I went to our safeguarding policy, which is probably just typed up, and there was nothing in there about what you would do with an offender. It was all about how to keep children safe. It was just like I had about 4 nights of sleepless. What do? Do you let someone come? But you can't tell anybody. That was probably one of my more challenging moments of senior leadership.
Absolutely, and you can't prepare for every safeguarding eventuality. And something comes along, and then you have to sort of stop, think, what should we do? Maybe learn from, draw from other experience and things like that. But as a church, he has a right to come to the church in this situation you're talking about from way back, and Jesus loves him, and so we need to love him, but we've got to also consider the implications for others and protection around others. So it's always a really fine tightrope that you're walking.
We only had one safeguarding person then, first thing is I ring up the person. I said, this is what happened, and I was like, ooh, and we put you put obviously we didn't stop them from coming. We wasn't able to tell the church that this person was here. We put in a contract of what he couldn't and couldn't do. He couldn't go around people's houses for meals unless they had no children whatsoever. And I always remember someone come to me, and the person had been coming for maybe 3 or 4 months, said, just seemed okay. I mean, obviously we kept an eye on where they sat and what went on, and teas and coffee time. He was probably the most watched person we've ever had in New Life. And I remember someone coming up to me on a Sunday, and they said, I think XYZ would be a really great youth worker, and I think you should invite them onto the youth working team. And I went, well, I'm not sure that they might not want, try and make all these lame excuses. Well, I asked them, and before I approached you, Rob, and they seemed a little bit offish. I was thinking, I wonder they were these. And this was going back a long time. These things are not easy to handle.
No, and it's a prime example of how you can put things in place, but then something else will come along, and then you've got to adapt it and change, or your response. You have to think about your response. It's never one and done. Safeguarding. No,
it isn't, and I think for that was probably my first real encounter with safeguarding, but not from a point of something had happened, but someone that wanted to come along to church. And thankfully I've never had that repeated, but it was that moment in time where you think, and then the police aren't easy either, because they sort of said, if people find out that you've got someone at your church like this, your building could be seriously damaged. It is a hot potato,
absolutely,
isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I mean, I think there's lots for us to learn, and I look back now on that incident, because straight after we was able to look at our safeguarding policy and put into it, this is what we do if we have someone who is on the register, and that was in there, and we highlighted it without exposure. We said, look, we have might have people here who are not as safe as you think. Don't leave handbags on seats. I'm not saying that person would have done anything like that, but we used to have people leave their handbag on a seat, wander off, purse at the top. Because we assume that everyone who comes to church is at that time probably okay, whereas now we wouldn't have that same assumption.
But I think there are probably some people that still have that view that church is a really safe place. We don't need safeguarding because everyone's saved, or inquiring about being saved. But as we can see in the media, churches aren't immune from this in any shape or form, sadly. And we could probably list a dozen or so names quite easily of people where safeguarding in church has failed because of what's gone on.
Yep. So guys, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back after Gracie Taylor has just sung to us.
I've tried so hard to see it, took me so long to believe it. You chose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won, I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated
barely see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who's conquered it all. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all.
Welcome back, guys. We're talking all things safeguarding tonight, and it's really great to have James Hancock with us, who's part of the New Life Church safeguarding team. So James, I just want to move on now to the thing that's probably most prominent in my mind is how do we create a safe environment in New Life Church, and also what happens if you have someone who's in your environment or who has been a part of your environment that it's became really clear has been causing damage to people, serious damage. And the reason I say this is if you're not aware, recently a prophet called Sean Boltz, as it's come out that he has used information that's in the public domain and kind of used that to give words to people. And so this has been for quite a long time. He's trawled social media, etc. And, now there are a plethora of victims coming out who have been seriously damaged. And also it was known that this was happening, and yet it wasn't called out by people who were in the know. And so for me, I over the last few years, I wouldn't have called out people publicly. So you wouldn't. I don't think you've heard me say anything from the front of New Life Church about people that cause me concern. That doesn't mean there aren't people that cause me concern. I would probably talk about it privately, but wouldn't say anything publicly. And I think now, having observed what's gone on, watching all of the various podcasts, listening to people who clearly are really upset, and then there's people that are upset but also want to maintain the integrity of the prophetic gift. So first thing I would say, I know you had a conversation recently with some guys in our church remit around prophecy and some ways that could be handled. So I just wondered if you would like to just sort of talk a little bit about those.
Yeah. So again, this is coming from the place of wanting to protect those that are receiving prophetic word and pastoral support, and those that are giving that. Because I think what's been illustrated by the Sean Bolt situation in Bethel is that there can be victims from misuse of prophetic. And I know I sit here and I believe in the prophetic. I've received some fantastic prophetic words. I've received some dodgy ones as well. But that's that is going to be part and parcel of how prophecies work. So I think we need to educate churches, leaders, and those that come to church about the importance of weighing up words that are given. And I think, particularly when words are given by church leaders and there's that power imbalance, people can think, oh yeah, this leader has a hotline to God, so therefore what they're saying must be true. So I think we have to do some education and learning around the fact that, whoever's bringing that word, whether it's someone that's but someone that's maybe a peer within the church that's part of the pastoral or prophetic team, or someone who's a church leader, whoever's bringing you that prophetic word, you need to go away. You need to consider that. Biblically, we're told, aren't we, that we should pray into prophetic words that we receive. We should go back to the Bible. Is it biblical? If what they're saying biblical? Because if it's not, chuck it out straight away. And spend time with God, asking Him, dwelling on that, getting other people to pray, look into that for you as well. So just really having that understanding that everyone should weigh up a word that is given to them.
Yeah, I guess for myself, one of the things that I've, in the environment that I'm in, which is very charismatic, I go to some events, some meetings, and people give they'll come and give you a prophetic word. It seems odd when they're giving it to you. It doesn't necessarily resonate. But also, I would also say that it doesn't sometimes bear any reference to what I would call the biblical gift of prophecy. And I think teaching people to discern and weigh a prophecy, but also does it come into line with biblical the teachings of the Bible vis-a-vis prophecy. So, my point is, just because someone comes up to you and says, I believe, thus saith the Lord. I mean, that is great, but actually it's not thus saith the Lord that's saying that. You're telling me this is a word that you're bringing to me. So I wouldn't be thrown by thus saith the Lord, because that thus saith the Lord is like, if I disagree with it, I'm fighting with not only this person, I'm fighting with the whole host of heaven.
Absolutely. And I think that's where that sort of is tipping into spiritual abuse, which is relatively new in being separated out of sort of emotional abuse, because I think in all faith groups, Christians and others, that they're people in those positions can strong arm people into following them, believing what they're saying by saying a phrase, making them question that they're not a good enough Christian because you're not believing what God has told them. And so I think it's really important that people that are delivering and giving words of wisdom or words of discernment or prophecy, they themselves, once it's been shared, encourage them to go away and think about it. Because, when we receive words from other people, we believe it's from God, but we might be misplaced, we might be wrong, or we might have misinterpreted it from what God has given us. So I think we have to be really careful that we can't assume that anyone has a direct line to God and hears everything clearly.
Well, in the weighing of just processing the Sean Bolt's situation. So I was at a conference in 2016 where Sean Boltz was the keynote speaker, and at the time, he gave words to people. He called out like their names. He didn't do telephone numbers, and he didn't do credit card numbers, but I understood that he did use those things sometimes to get people's attention, or bank account numbers. But at that time, it was kind of like, wow, this guy is amazing. He's got a hotline to God, and you were desperate in a way for him to call out, you.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't. But in doing my kind of research into it, I just thought I would have probably been impressed if he'd have known my bank account number. But actually, God doesn't need to give me my bank account number, because actually what a person brings to you as a prophetic word, I would say God has already started to speak to you about that anyway. There'll be, you might feel, actually, I'm thinking that I need to move or look at a new career or something. And then God would normally, our Father speaks to us first.
Yeah.
So if it's completely off the page, I think that's a good barometer for me to say, actually, I need to check this out with others.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, me and Lizzie went and did some ministry. We were asked to do some ministry at a group, and this person come up to me at the end and said, "Can I give you a prophetic word?" It was very public. They said, "God's saying to you that you should stop leading the church that you lead." Now, for Liz and I, that didn't resonate at all at the time, and we didn't say this is not. We just received it.
Yeah.
But we talked about it together. We said, "Was there any resonance with that word?" No, and so we left it. We chatted a few days later with some people that we would be not accountable to, but we want to make ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
Rob and Liz, we would dismiss that word.
Yeah.
That was it. We felt that. We checked it.
Yeah.
We didn't go back to the person, but it was obvious we didn't take on board what they had said. But if I was not a leader in a church and someone gave us that word, what would I have done with it? And that's the power imbalance, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's come out from the Sean Bolt's situation is that people have made catastrophic life decisions based on prophecies that he gave, because he caveated it with sort of being able to tell them where they lived and their phone number and things like that. That effectively was him saying, "God has told me this," but he was doing it in a more sort of showman way. And so then that's, people have made wrong marriages, got themselves into, have suffered violent marriages and have stayed in those marriages for too long because they believe this was God's will for them. Yeah. So it's so damaging. The power of giving a prophetic word shouldn't be overlooked. No. And the responsibility that goes with giving that should be held really tightly.
Yeah. So, I would say one of the things that, for me, if I feel I've got a prophetic word for someone, I wouldn't be embarrassed of giving that. But I would use things like, "I wonder if God is saying to you." I don't know if this is of God, but as I looked at you, I just felt these things come into my head. Yeah. Is it okay if I share those with you? So you're trying to put the onus,
absolutely,
not on the person, but are you happy to receive? Then another thing that I would always do is I go up to someone and say afterwards, "Did that resonate with you, or was it just I had a bad coffee from Young's?" Because actually, if God is speaking through a person to speak to another person, there will be some clear resonance.
Absolutely. And I think as well, if God's trying to get a message through, and this is from my personal experience, if God's trying to get a message to you, he'll do it in multiple ways.
Yeah.
So that can sometimes be one part of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I observed while just listening to Sean Bolts is in some ways they kind of ask you questions. So do you live at, so it would be, do you live at, there was the house one where there was a person in the town,
same name,
yeah. And he went for the house
of the other woman,
and he said, is it, and then she went, well, that's not my address. And that was a warning sign to some, wasn't it? Because
absolutely, especially when it matched up with exactly the same name.
And so one of the things that just to watch is that people don't lead you, because the thing is, if you get an international speaker coming who's strongly in the prophetic, because you're like, wow, your filters for discerning are different. So if it was someone you didn't know who wasn't famous come and gave you that word, you would look at that. Oh, I'm not sure about that person. Oh, I've got a word from this amazing prophet. It must be true. I would want to say that if it's from someone who's completely no one knows or world famous, don't change how you way to prophecy.
Definitely. And I think that does feed into what's been going on in Bethel, is that sort of celebrity culture in Christian circles and in churches and these mega churches. Just because a church is big, just because a church has got these well-known people, doesn't mean they're a healthy church. And I think that's been a real learning lesson, I think, from what's come out recently.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we need to look at and teach and equip people for is in the gift of discernment.
Yeah.
Discernment is really needed, particularly when it comes to life-changing decisions. If someone come up to me and said, Rob, I want to prophesy to you that you're going to be like doors are going to open for you into different places around the world, that becoming true is things open. But if someone come up to you and said, I think you're going to marry this person, I'm already married, so that would be like so. But the thing is, it's a warning bell.
Yeah.
Those kind of things I would certainly encourage us all to take more seriously and not to act on them, but to check with people that know you, understand you, your own leaders. Don't be taken, but Sean Bolt said this, so this is the prophet.
Yeah.
Clearly, he wasn't what he was purporting to be. So,
definitely.
That's not easy. But then when I go back to 2016, because some of my friends actually did get words from him, was it a false word?
Yeah, and it's not to say that God didn't use him to give accurate prophecies. It's just, unfortunately, the water's been muddied here because there's proof that there's been some collusion there.
But in the Old Testament, someone that gave a prophecy that wasn't fulfilled was stoned. In the New Testament, where there's grace, So I still would say, if someone is going around with the prophetic, saying they've got a prophetic gift that is clearly causing damage, I think you have to go to them and say, I'm really sorry, but you are not able to exercise that gift here.
Yeah.
Because a number of the words that you've given have been proven to be false.
Yeah.
And if you carry on, we will let the church know that we don't validate your gift.
Yeah. And I think looking at the Bethel situation, they were right to challenge Sean, but then they didn't take it beyond that. And that's where, to me, the mistakes were made. Because, yes, you privately give him a chance to correct, to repent. Part of that repentance would be, I would be expecting him to sort of come out and confess what he's done, so that those that have received those words are aware that some of those words are false. But just to then, what felt like, just ignore it. I'm sure there were things going on behind the scenes, but when they saw no action and no response, they should have made a public statement, because so many people's lives have been affected by what he's done. And I think they should have recognised and thought about the victims, so the victims that had happened in the past, but also the fact that they would, if they allowed him to carry on doing that, there were going to be more victims that were going to be added to this list of victims, and that to me should have been enough for them to have thought, if we don't publicly call out what he's doing and prevent from what he's doing, more people are going to get hurt.
Yeah, I think that's the so I wouldn't have called out publicly, but I am now reviewing that as a person, but also encouraging us as a house, as a church.
Yeah.
When would you call out, and when would you not? So I feel if there's someone around me that's behaving poorly, if I go to them and say, "Hey, do you realise that there are consequences? You're behaving like this. Mm-hmm. A number of people have expressed real concern. So we're coming to you. We want to help you through this process." Mm-hmm. One of the things we would ask you to do is to stop doing what you're doing for a season until we've worked this out with you. These are the people that have complained, and one of the things is you need to put right the damage that we are saying we feel you have done.
Yeah.
If they then, well, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm a prophet and I don't care what anybody says. Mm-hmm. This is God's word. Mm. I would say, I'm really sorry. We're going to have to make this known to the church that we're not going to be using. We don't endorse what you're doing.
Yeah.
If they say, "Oh, I really ask forgiveness. I didn't realise," there's it's a different. It's the way that they receive the correction that.
Exactly, yeah. And you still need to give that person pastoral support, because clearly something's happened there that they feel they can only operate in this way. So that's also part of safeguarding. It's supporting and safeguarding, protecting that person. Yeah. But I think when you hit a wall of trying to show them that what they're doing is wrong and that it's hurting people, and there's still no response, you don't really have any other option but to then speak publicly.
No, and I realised that not calling stuff out, and just for the sake of, I don't want them to feel like I'm dishonouring.
Yeah.
I realise is that decision isn't mine alone to make.
Yeah.
It is in the context of the leadership team and the safeguarding people.
Yeah.
That we're all accountable to each other. We're not. I'm not the arbiter of what is right and wrong. Mm-hmm. I've got strong views. Yeah. But actually, I'm New Life Church, Crouch Valley. We as a team need to assess this, and is this what is going to be our action? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to minimise the prophetic gift. I believe it's still biblical. I'm not a cessationalist. I believe God does speak to people. Mm-hmm. He gives direction. But I also recognise that in that context, there is the scope for people to be really damaged. Yeah. Particularly around big life-changing decisions like getting married, moving, changing jobs, where you invest your money.
Absolutely.
Those kind of things. Yeah. Whether you're going to have children or not. There's lots of people that have prophesied they're going to have children, and they never do. Mm-hmm. And then you meet with them and they realise that when they were young, they never had children. They couldn't have children. People prophesied, and then 20 years later, they've not got children. Yeah. So it's not easy, isn't it? It does real damage.
It does, and prophecy is a powerful gift, but as much as it can be powerful in a good way, it can be powerful when mishandled.
Yes, it can. And I think that one of our goals as a follower of Jesus is we don't want people to be given words that are not from God.
Yeah.
So just because I feel sorry for someone doesn't mean I then give them a word.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
kind of gives them a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
You know, don't
Yeah.
if God should already be speaking to them into those situations.
And that I think can inform part of your checking mechanism. Like when I remember being given about 18 months or so ago quite a spot on prophetic word, and I knew that person didn't know anything that was going on in my life at that moment, but what they spoke about was bang on. And so that was a real encouragement, because if it had come from someone like you who you knew the situation that I was in, I would have still weighed up. I would have thought, was he just saying that because he knows? Well, so it's that's a real good.
I remember
check.
Gerald Coates. I mean, Gerald Coates used to say, "I say this because I know it, and I say this, and I don't know it." So he would differentiate between those things. And I think that was something I learned from Gerald. A real positive person in my life, but I learnt from him. You know, if you do know something, it's not to say, actually, I prayed around this, James, I know this situation. I just want to say, this is what I feel God has said to me. But it does give you that filter to say, well, I know he knows. But if I come up to you and say, I know nothing about this, but you know, you're thinking of moving to Timbuktu, and I think, have you ever thought about moving to Timbuktu? In your head, it's like, oh,
wow,
a bit more.
Absolutely.
No one knew that except me and God. But thank you, James, for coming on. I know it's not the easiest of topics.
No.
But I want to thank you for your views.
To worship you, God,
we really love you
when
as
all
being part
around
of
me
New Life
feels
Church, and I
lost.
know that
I
I've
lift my
benefited
eyes
from your
and be
wisdom
still.
on safeguarding. I've benefited from your wisdom when I've had real concerns of whether I've done something right or wrong.
I lift my eyes to the hills.
To navigate that.
Jesus, I remember.
And guys, I hope this has been helpful
All
for
you've done
you.
before this, your promise.
It's just
how
been
you
good to
choose
talk
the
about it.
lamb,
If it's only me and
love.
James that have watched this video, then
Jesus, we remember.
but remember,
your
guys, you're the head,
kindness,
not
even
the
when we
tail, and God is
forget.
going to do
You
something
remind
good
us
for you.
how you left the 99 to find us, to find us.